the evening, ladies and gentlemen, and it's where I get to pretend to be Michael Buffer, a really shit version of Michael Buffer. Here we go. Okay, first, let's welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, a former super middleweight world champion who completed his 10-year professional career with a record of 28 victories from 32 fights, 20 coming by the way of knockouts, hailing from London, England. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the man who goes by the name of St. George GROVES! Our second guest, ladies and gentlemen, is a four-time super middleweight world champion. 33 wins from 35 fights across 12 years. Hailing from Nottingham, England. Put your hands together for the Cobra, Froch! So there we have them, up on stage. Now this is basically this is the second time that we've done this this tour, the second year. So this is the 2022 edition, and this is the first night that I've been back with the boys. This is the third night that you've done, and it's good to be back. It's good to see you. How are you?
It really is good to be back. I'm very well. I pulled my back out in the gym earlier. 240 kilo deadlift, easy usually.
Get used to this.
So we did Nottingham, it was a bit cold in Nottingham. Then we did Leicester, and then we are in Newcastle. My mum was born in Blythe, so just not trying to win the crowd over or anything. So I've got some Nuki blood in me, that's the fight.
I met Carl's mum in Nottingham a couple of weeks ago.
Careful.
I was a bit nervous, right?
This is gonna be fun.
I was a bit nervous, but you know, I thought I'm going to try and kill her with kindness, you know what I mean? I don't want to. So she comes over and she said, "Wow, you're much better looking than you are on the TV." And then without skipping a beat, Carl turned to me and goes, "My mum's as blind as a bat." He wouldn't even let me have that.
She's got bad eyesight.
Now look, we're gonna get together in a sort of a traditional sort of pre-main event thing in a moment. But I just wanted to get your take on the whole thing, the whole sort of celebration of boxing that you had together in 2013, 2014. When you look back at it, just a short little sharp moment from you, Carl, because I know you can go on. In terms of your emotions when you think about that time. Now you're retired. What do you think about? What sort of conjures up?
Are we going back to the Wembley fight? Where are we going? Going back to
just those two fights.
Oh, the two fights.
Just that as an event.
I remember the second one better than the first one. Yeah. For obvious reasons. Give me a bit of a...
Funny, I'm the other way round.
See, that's why we work well together. He did beat me up in the first fight, but a win's a win. And in the second one, obviously, it was KO stylo, wasn't it? It was go to sleep in front of 80,000 at Wembley. Fair play to George though, fair play. He turns up to these, keeps doing a meet and greet handshake, and he has to listen to me give him stick. So if you give him a bit of help if you want tonight, not too much, but don't let him feel left out, it's out of order. If I got chinned at Wembley in front of 85, I would not be here. I wouldn't be here, no fucking chance.
No, you'd be knocking on Floyd Mayweather's door trying to tell him about that.
When you look back to 2014,
Yeah.
What a moment for me and George. The first fight, the controversial stoppage, depending on whose corner you're in, and then obviously the build-up for the big fight at Wembley Stadium, the biggest fight post-war in boxing, a little boxing ring in the middle of a big pitch. I mean, it was brilliant times, and that was the catalyst pretty much for what happened with Anthony Joshua and Matchroom going on to that next level. And boxing's back on the map. People are watching boxing. It's a bit more digital now. You've got DAZN, Sky Sports, Channel 5 are doing little bits. But me and George, I think, are single-handedly responsible for bringing boxing back to the mainstream. It's a good moment.
Trailblazers. Never knowing not too long, Carl. But just a sort of understand where you both were as you were sort of heading into that fight, because you were in different phases of your careers. Carl, with you, first of all, you were the champ. You were sort of Charlie Big Bollocks. Everyone loved you. And you were just thinking, right, one more big fight. Easy money. Let's just kick on. You had a bit of a swagger to you, or were you a bit too complacent?
I was probably complacent, but I had the swagger. I'd had a great career. So when I first heard that George Groves, the Saint, was mandatory for my IBF world title, which was the world title I beat Lucian Butte for, after the Super 6 World Boxing Classic, which took place over 2 years, mainly in the States. I had a fight in England and then Denmark, and the last 2 was in America. So I was an established world champion, but coming off the back of a defeat to Andre Ward when I came back to British soil. So my first fight back on UK soil was against Lucian Butte, which for me was a really big win. I'd just lost to Andre Ward in a bit of a snooze fest of a fight. Ward's very tricky. If no one's seen him fight, whether they've seen mine or not, he's very good at winning, but it's boring. He'll put a glass eye to sleep. Literally holds onto you. He ducks below the waist. He uses his head a lot. He beat Kovalev with 3 consecutive low blows. And Kovalev was like, what's going off? And the ref stopped the fight and Ward won. I'm not giving him stick, I'm just being honest. Good fighter. You rate him, don't you? You're a big Ward fan.
Good fighter.
No, I'm fucking good.
He's a good fighter.
It's quite a boring fighter. So anyway, I lost to Ward, come back to the UK and fought Lucian Butte for the IBF world title. And he was unbeaten, not many people thought I could win. George Groves was actually sat there that night, commentating, was it BBC 5 Live?
I think it was 5 Live, oh, yeah.
So he sat there in awe with his jaw open, thinking, wow, Carl Froch is so good, he's amazing. I lost to Ward, and then I absolutely smashed Lucian Butte, the unbeaten IBF world champion. And became a 3-time world boxing super middleweight champion.
Congratulations, Cole.
Thank you. George Groves was sat there, commentating for BBC 5 Live Radio, eating sandwiches while he was commentating, apparently.
You always had that eating sandwiches
There
bit.
was a plate of sandwiches, and he demolished a lot, because Adam Move said, I didn't even get a sandwich, Groves ate the lot. I mean, you've got to feed the beast,
Yeah.
So anyway, apparently that night, Adam Booth come to me, because he wasn't good friends with you, was he, Adam, at them stage? And he said, George said he can beat you, no problem. I said, what, off the back of the Butte performance? I went in there, I put him on his back foot, backed him up, smashed him to bits. He got absolutely cobra'd for 5 rounds, and it was game over. George left the stadium in awe. I don't care what he says.
Butte was terrible, that.
Were you in awe? What was your view at that?
You must have been impressed with that win.
No, I wasn't really.
That's what I'm talking about.
No, I remember being really disappointed with Butte. I thought he'd misjudged the weight. Maybe he'd had a bit of water weight, flown in late, couldn't make the IBF check weight. He looked a bit scared and a bit frightened. And you know, you're an intimidating guy, and he's away from home, and he was a bit precious, a bit delicate. But fair play to Cole. I do, you know, with time, I can give him credit for that win, because he was up against it, coming back off a loss. He's gone straight back in. He would have had to have paid a lot of money to bring the champion to the UK. Bit disappointed Eddie Hearn stormed the ring before the fight was over. I don't know if anyone's seen that bit. It was like 2v1 at one point. It was very WWE. But Butte, yeah. I mean, that and you finished him. That was the end of him. We'd never heard of him again. But you know, I was there. I was looking at Cole as an opponent. I was like, right, he's world champion. He's going to get it.
Well, you do that. When you're not champion, you look at the world champion, your weight division, obviously, and say, right, who's the best in the world? You know, it's like before I turned professional, it was Chris Eubank and Nigel Benn and Joe Calzaghe. I mean, I just different generation of Calzaghe. He's about getting on, 8, 9 years older than me. So I was looking at him as the champ, and obviously I was supposed to fight Calzaghe. I was mandatory for his WBC belt, and he vacated rather than fight me, and I fought Pascal, and Calzaghe went on and fought Hopkins and Roy Jones. Fair play to him, he had a great career, retired undefeated, but he didn't want to fight me, did he, to be honest. We're not here to give Joe Calzaghe any stick, he had a great career, retired undefeated. So when George was watching me demolish Butte, he was probably thinking, like, seriously, he was probably thinking, yeah, I know how to beat Froch. Because I look beatable. My guard's a bit low, I get caught with shots. I'd lost to Kessler, I'd lost to Andre Ward, so, you know, close fights, both on points. But I can see how you can have a little bit of confidence, but not a great deal of confidence. But after that, it was Yusuf Mack, my first easy fight, and then the rematch with Mikel Kessler. And after I beat Mikel Kessler in that rematch at the O2 Arena in London, 20,000 people, big crowd, Sky Sports, not quite 80. Sky Sports pay-per-view. It was a milestone for Eddie Hearn and Matchroom and Sky Sports pay-per-view, because the pay-per-view sort of model got kiboshed, got cancelled after David Hay hit Audley Harrison, because it was such a bad fight and Audley Harrison never even threw a punch, and everyone had paid the 20 quid. It was all emailing Sky like, what the fuck's going on? I paid 20 quid, the guy don't throw a punch, it's out of order, I'm never buying pay-per-view ever again. So they cancelled pay-per-view. So I single-handedly, me on my own, brought that pay-per-view back to Sky Sports. And that's why I still get free Sky subscription to this day. They tried to cancel it. Because I don't work for Sky officially, but I had to remind Adam Smith and say, listen, I'm the reason you've got a good pension. Eddie Hearn now has got the model, the pay-per-view model. I know he's gone over to DAZN and said pay-per-view is dead, because that's what he said, Eddie Hearn, when he went over to DAZN. Now he's bringing pay-per-view back, isn't he, on DAZN? So anyone who's subscribed for DAZN now has got to then pay extra for the fight.
Right, let's not digress too
Yeah,
much.
I'm digressing a little bit.
So basically, the fight is made.
After the Kessler fight,
yeah,
which was a big win.
You thought this is just another sort of stepping stone to me then having a sort of a great crescendo at the end of my career. But you didn't quite have your eye on the ball, is that fair or not?
After the Buildup win, which was great, I had one easy fight, Yusuf Mack.
Yeah.
That was a mark time fight, my first mark time fight, and 14 more title fights back to back. And after the Kessler win, at the O2 on pay-per-view on Sky, it was like, right, I'm kind of, the only thing I could do now is probably go somewhere to like Las Vegas, you know, the mecca of boxing, and have a big fight, someone like, I don't know, Chavez Jr. or maybe Kennedy Golovkin, was in a different weight division, but a big puncher at middleweight as well as super middleweight, which he's shown in his career. And then all of a sudden Eddie Hearn rings me up and said, can you remember George Groves from Shepherd's Bush? Your old sparring partner? I'm like, yeah, well, does he want some sparring? What's he want? Does he want something signed? He wants something signed. And, no, it's mandatory for your IBF title. You're going to be fighting George Groves. And I was like, fuck off, you idiot. And then I didn't give it any credence at all. And that was my first mistake. Not respecting a young, hungry guy who's got a great amateur, 2-time ABA champion, fast hands, and he can punch a little bit.
So is that fair that like you and he was on your horizon, you wanted to go for him, and you sort of maybe sensed that he didn't sort of respect you as much as he should have done?
Yeah, so I fought on that Kessler card. I was chief support to that card.
Oh yeah, he was helping Mikel Kessler spar. He went over to Denmark to spar Mikel Kessler, getting Kessler warmed up to give me a beating. That didn't work for you, did it?
Softened him up for Carl. But yeah, Adam, so I'm looking at the rankings, you know, I'm like, poor, you know, the IBF I wasn't really flying, but I think I was #1 with the WBA, I think I was really #3 with WBC, so I mean, I'm going to get my shot at some point. So what are the world champions doing? So I'm flicking through the TV one day, ITV, is it ITV? Carl Froch is on there, he's got sequins on, he's doing cha-cha-cha. Dancing with the celebs or dancing partners. He's on a dancing show. It's just a bit bizarre. I was thinking, well, if I get him, he's going to have better footwork at least, you know. But yeah, Eddie Hearn showed up at my gym one day. He said, look, you're #7, but #1 and 2 are vacant. 3 and 4 are fighting each other. 5 don't want it. 6 ain't around. You're in. I was like, great. I'll have it. Let's go.
It was mandatory for the IBF by default.
Oh yeah.
It was down the list.
Mandatory. Mandated for you and his IBF belt. And then they put the fight together, and obviously I can sell a show, so it was going to be big. We show up, press conference. I've got no trainer by this point, which wasn't ideal. Sort of fell out with my team.
Nobody could stand it. No trainer, no manager.
So I get up there, I'm like, didn't know what to expect. Carl sits down, tells us all his, what did you say, Carl? I'll let you deliver the line.
Well, listen, I just beat Mikel Kessler. I was on my high horse for a little bit, and I said, listen, you're dealing with an international superstar here, mate. As soon as I said it, I thought, you know, no. That's not gone across how I meant it to come across. It was like Lady Gaga.
Yeah, I thought he was going to get on the table and start singing Single Ladies or something, you know.
I'd just been on ITV doing a silly dance show with my missus, and I'd beat Kessler Boote. I felt like I was kind of, this is what happens. I mean, Marvin Hagler said it's hard to get up and do a run when you're wearing silk pyjamas. And I kind of arrived, I'd made a few quid, and I was thinking, I'm world champion. When George became mandatory, I just didn't give him the respect. And looking back, it was unprofessional, and it was naive, and it was wrong.
But it happened. It shows that even someone sort of rough around the edges, who's fought his way up, can get the stars in their eyes and lose focus.
And I chinned him in sparring as well.
Yeah, do you want to take us back into sparring, or is that just too far back?
We had a little move around together, sporadically through the career at that point. We'd done 2 back-to-back spars before he boxed Mikkel Kessler. One I went up to Sheffield and he was training, stealing the taxpayers' money and the lottery-funded money, training for free at the international.
Oh yeah, you were sort of sneaking in the back door.
Sheffield. He put his picture up on the wall. I don't know how he managed it. He was hanging out with Andy Joshua and that at the time.
Robert McCracken was training all the Olympians, all the podium squad, the amateurs, the boys and the girls, for the Olympics. Yeah. And Robert McCracken's the performance director, head coach. Yeah. So obviously, by the virtue of the fact that he's there doing that, I turn on.
You thought you'd just chip along?
I just go along, and it was really good.
No, he was an inspiration for the Olympics, wasn't he?
I let them all have a selfie. We've got a picture on the wall. The coach was in town with his belts.
Yeah.
So I trained at the IS in Sheffield. Fantastic facilities, and I did my bit and went home at night. I wasn't draining the money from the kid. And I had a long, extensive amateur career where I never got paid, so it was nice to go and use the facilities at the EIS. And Anthony Joshua
steal a bit back.
Anthony Joshua did the same for the first 8 years of his career.
Right. Okay. Fine. So he did what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like I'm talking to the tax man now.
Yeah. I'm dressed a little bit like it. Right. Let's deal with that sort of the press conference vibe, because it was strange, because I remember I was working at Sky at the time, Sky Sports News, and we thought we knew Carl's journey. We'd obviously seen you pop up. You beaten James DeGale by that point, and it was looking good for you. But then the way that you sort of behaved was really quite cocky, quite full on, and it
very disrespectful.
Well, I think it surprised the audience.
I'm turning up to the press conference.
It did surprise you.
Well, I'm turning up to the press conference with 3 world titles. Yeah. I'd boxed world title fights back to back against the top fighters in the division. Yeah. And I know that was part of his game, but at the time he fucking got me. He was like wheeling the hips.
Yeah. Where did that come from? Where did that confidence come from that you thought, right, I'm just going to be really chippy and start to piss everyone off? Where did it come from?
It's just an arrogant
song. No, I didn't really want to piss the vast majority of people off. I just wanted to piss you off, to be honest. That would be enough.
Well, it's a treat.
But
it's a real treat.
I just didn't figure, why am I going to go to the press conference and just lavish him with praise? Like, it didn't make any sense to me. So I'll pick holes in his journey because I know it'll bother him. So
he wound me into he didn't wind me into a frenzy. He did it. He totally wound me up, played my career down, disrespected me, and he did it all in a pair of pink salmon pants. He had some like chinos, pink salmon ones that you would, like Larry David wears them on the golf course.
Just all the rage. We're talking about 2013.
So he proper helped me. So that was like brilliant though. That was like, people say, oh, load of bollocks, everyone talking it up, and it's not real. I was fuming. Yeah. He was genuine. And I went home from that press conference, like livid, thinking, I'm going to knock this guy out, Sparko. So he won really, because he got me thinking about the knockout rather than thinking about thinking about how focused and how much concentration I needed to beat this young. The guy was 10 years younger than me. He's had a great amateur career, double ABA champion. He beat James DeGale for the British title. And I'm looking at him thinking, I knocked him over in sparring, I just beat Kessler. And forgot that actually I'm fighting a young, hungry fighter who wants to become world champion.
And it was interesting that within that first press conference, you said exactly what you wanted to do. And that was another bold step. People going, oh, geez, I mean, it's a risky sort of thing to do. Yeah, you had your little faux pas with International Superstar, but that's like a minor thing. You were basically saying, look, I'm gonna knock him out in the first round, and and bingo. Just remind us of what you said.
Yeah, so...
You didn't actually think that was going to happen.
So come fight week, I've spent the last 10 weeks trying to convince Carl that I'm going to do a job on him. And, you know, it was falling on deaf ears, it felt like at that point. So it was suggested to me by the trainer, Paddy, who Carl likes, a really good trainer from Swindon. He said, why don't you tell him what you're going to do? We're going to come out, we're going to take the centre of the ring, we're going to, you know, work off the jab, and then we're going to hit him with 2 right hands in the first round. I was like, okay, that'll do. If it happens, which it should do, then he's going to sit down at the end of the first round and go, well, no, he was right about that. What else has he been right about? And it might start to unravel, you know. So that was the sort of the gist behind it. I mean, I didn't think that Carl would just give it to me that easy in the first round. Start gunslinging from, you know, punching from his ankles, crossing his legs, walking onto the big shots. But he did, you know, he bit. He bought into it. He didn't feel right on the ring walk. I'm sure he'll describe it a bit. But yeah, you know, you have to start a fight red hot. You can't start cold and then try and warm into it. And later on,
yeah, well, because we'll see that moment in a moment. But were you cold? Was it just that you were just sort of out of kilter that day and in the dressing room before you came out? Did you just feel a bit like
Absolutely. I did not feel myself. I didn't feel right. No excuses. I've got a job to do. I'm a professional fighter. And I've got 3 world titles. And I know what's expected of me. But I was doing a dance show with my partner, as George very conveniently pointed out earlier, called Stepping Out. I did a bit of Bhangra, a bit of Cha-Cha-Cha.
What was your best one? Because the judges used to give you a fucking hard time.
Actually, now you're asking, which is nice of you to ask, I quite excelled in the rumba. Yeah, I got good hips.
Yeah.
So the rumba was well. The Cha-Cha-Cha didn't really go down too well. I want the best.
Yeah.
Well, I did three
three whole weeks.
So I'm dancing with my wife. It's very difficult, but I've got a few moves. And I'm basically every Saturday doing this dance. What's going on here?
I'll start the beat.
I'll definitely have a little waltz with you, but the back's a bit playing on. It's like 240 deadlift. It's done there. So anyway, I'm doing the dance show for 6 weeks of the 12-week training camp. I usually have 12 weeks. I have 2 weeks just easing myself in Nottingham, going up, running around College Park in Nottingham, and going to the Phoenix Boxing Club, the old amateur club. I have 2 weeks just sort of doing my own press-ups at home and enjoying it. Just getting out of like rest mode, because rest mode I get a bit of a belly on there. I go up to 13 stone. You go up to about 15, don't you? So I go up to about 13 stone. We fight at 12 stone, 168 pounds. So I tick over for 2 weeks, get into the river, run with my best mate Adam. He knocks on the door at 7 in the morning, and I get myself in kind of just half reasonable shape, ready to go and have 10 weeks with Robert Cracken. At this particular time, I'd done 6 weeks on a dance show on ITV every Saturday night, learning these different choreography moves with my wife. It was hard work, and I was like, after the day's training for dancing, I couldn't be asked to train, so I was like, I'll go and do a little run around the block, and it's like a mile and a half, and do a few sprints, but nothing intensive. So I had a 6-week camp for that first fight. And I was quite naturally fit, I had 3 world titles, you know, I was a seasoned professional, so you can get away with just having a 6-week camp, but for me, mentally, I usually have 12 weeks, 10 solid, I have 120 rounds of sparring, I do X amount of press-ups, X amount of sit-ups, X amount of pull-ups. I know exactly what I've done. I'm very sort of meticulous with my diaries. I diarise all my work. I've got 13 black books at home now, actually, in my office, for a 13-year professional career, with every single thing written down, every press-up, every squat drum, every pull-up, round of sparring, round of pads, bags, everything's in there. It's a little bit boring, but for me, I can look back on, say, the Lucian Butte fight and say, right, I did the 6-mile run at 6 minute 20 miles, which is fast. And I've done 10 hill sprints at 30 seconds, and it's all there. So if I can then mimic that for my next fight, I know I'm fit. You know, that's how I got my confidence. So this particular camp, it was a 6-week training camp after the dance show, and it only dawned on me when I was sitting in the changing rooms in Manchester, that cold, dark night.
Did you write that bit in your diary as well?
I did. It went in there.
Feeling a bit cold. He's coming for me.
Lonely. And it was literally, Sky Sports come in and say, listen, Froch, 6 minutes, we need you. And you're sitting in the changing rooms on your own, warming up on the pads, like in your head, you know you're in that ring on your own. Nobody can help you now. You've got to do that ring walk. And that ring walk, to me, was like the Green Mile. Walking to the ring thinking, fucking hell, I'm not ready. I've not done my sparring. I've got 40 rounds of sparring instead of 120 rounds. I've not done my runs, but I'm okay. I did some good sparring with him, and I'm all right. You know, I've had a good few rounds with these lads on the English squad. I'm trying to talk myself into it. I've got all these doubts in my head. Say, cometh the hour, cometh the man. And I had to really dig deep mentally on that ring walk. Because I got into the ring thinking, fucking hell, Groves looks big. How much weight did you put on? 2 stone? He weighed in 12 stone, got in the ring about 14 stone. How much was you? 13? 12, 10 for us, yeah. 13.
I cut £10, I put on £10.
You put on £10. So anyway, I'm giving away a stone on the night. And
you lost 3 kilo in the changing room.
Yeah, I lost 3 kilo. But it was a tough night for me. From the changing rooms to the first bell to getting dropped in the first round.
Well, let's see that moment, ladies and gents, in the first round, and then you can maybe just give us your reaction and your take on what happened. Here we go. George.
He gets up quick, doesn't he? He's got a lot of muscle, Froch, yeah. He's still pretty fresh in the fight. You know, I know he's got a good engine, but he made a mistake at that point. Crossed his legs, walked onto a big shot. I think I sort of landed a bit of a right hand before then, but nothing sensational. And he just wants to respond instantly. And then, yeah, just makes a mistake. He walks onto a sweet shot from me. I bounce off the back leg, which I do well.
I gave it to him on a silver platter. I got my chin and put it on the plate. There you go.
Yeah, and I mean, you might see a replay. He's out. That's the funny thing. He's completely gone. He's absolutely spent, and he hits.
Just very quickly.
He hits the ground so hard, he comes back to life.
An attempted jab from Froch takes the right hand. He's not throwing the jab with confidence. Froch, he's struggling with the range.
He's alright.
So let's take it into, like, from your point of view, when that happened, did you think, oh fuck, I'm in big trouble now?
Well, if you notice, my head didn't hit the floor. You know when Amir Khan gets knocked out, Sparko, it's like a regular occurrence for him. He goes down, his body rolls, and then his head bounces on the canvas about 3 or 4 times, and then his legs stiff and his arms do that, and he's like totally fucked. You know he's not getting up. That wasn't one of them knockdowns. That was like, I've been caught, flush. I was asleep for a split second. As soon as I land, I'm like trying to get myself up. My hands are pulling me up, and I'm up on my feet, and my legs are still a little bit dazed. My legs are still a bit Bambi style under me. So I backed up to the ropes and thought to myself, fucking hell, he's done me there. I knew it was late in the round, because I'd had a good 2.5 minutes of dancing, and yeah, he caught me flush with a real good right hand. I gave it to him on a silver platter, but he took it and knocked me over for only the 2nd time in my professional career. So to climb off the canvas, look down at my corner, tell him I'm all right. McCracken's looking at me thinking, what the fuck's going on? And obviously the referee says, box, you're okay, you're fit to continue. So I was, he knows I'm solid, he knows how old I am. Fine. And then George took advantage.
Well, you had a good relationship with Howard Foster, didn't you?
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine, Howard. Yeah. He's on the Christmas card list. He gets a Christmas card every year. Him and the family.
And a hamper.
So the bell went, and George decided to carry on punching me in the chin, trying his hardest to finish me off. He took advantage of that, didn't you? At the end of the
Did you
first
think
round.
at that point, when you made those early inroads, in that big moment, did you think, right, this is just going to, attritionally, I'm just going to be able to wear him down, and I've got control of this already, and it's going my way, and I just need to finish it off?
Yeah, you kind of do think this is my fight to lose now at this point. You know, he's gone down. It wasn't like a cuffing shot that caught him, but it's a good shot. He's up, and even if the bell does go, I'm thinking, well, you know, that's going to do a lot of damage. You know, that's going to catch up with him soon. But at the same time, you don't want to be eager and sort of try and empty the tank, trying to get a finish. This wasn't my lottery ticket. In my brain, this is me boxing well.
See, that's the experience right there, because when I watched Butte and I had him hurt in the first round, the 2nd round, I just jumped on him and didn't let him go. I didn't let him come back into the fight, I just jumped on him. So A little bit inexperienced there from your point of view. You let me back into the fight. Is that fair to say?
Not really, because I punched back at me for about 6.5 rounds, so it's like, no, like, you know, it was no surprise to me, Adam, no surprise to me. Roger the deck, great, get him up. We'll go again, we've got 11 more rounds to get rid of him.
So he went for the finish, he tried to finish me off, and I'm just too fucking hard, absolute nails. I took everything he had, everything he threw at me. He threw everything at me, including the kitchen sink. And I took it, I did take it on the chin. I mean, come on, I took the shots.
No, he took his licks that night, yeah.
Do you sort of, within the fight, are you going, right, I've actually got renewed respect for him, and then that starts to twist your...
No respect.
Or not?
You sat down in the corner and you thought, well, it's like Rocky 4. You see Rocky 4, when Rocky sits down, Ivan Drago won't even bleed, he's like stood there. Eventually, when he bleeds, it's like, he bleeds, he's human. You must have thought I was a machine. You must have thought to yourself, there's no way I can stop this fight. He was saying to Paddy McGuinness, he's maybe not McGuinness, Paddy Fitzpatrick, Gavin, his real name is, he's not even Irish, he calls himself Paddy. He was saying, Paddy, I can't hurt him. What do you?
No. No, I mean, yeah, he's got onto his credit, he's just like one of them, I don't know.
I've never hit anybody with my hardest punch. I've never hit anybody with my hardest punch and not seen a reaction where the legs are going, or they're looking like they're hanging on, or they're looking at the ref and they're looking for refuge. When I catch him, and he was in there with everything he had, and I was feeling it, but I was rolling him, I was getting close, I was working the body, I was trying to tire him down and get to him, and that was the experience of all the stuff.
But were you trying to stay in the fight, but when do you think it started to flip? So when did it start to turn? Like round 7, 8? Did you start to think, right, actually, I can win this?
It was the end of round 6, which George can remember well, because he had a good round because he landed a lot of heavy shots. Right hook, left hook, right hook, and he was bouncing shots on my head for fun. But I was getting close to him and putting the odd shot around the body and backing him up and leaning on him, and I could feel that he was starting to feel the pace. If you work the heavy back, in 6 rounds, that's 18 minutes. Most street fights last 30 seconds. This is an 18-minute street fight, 6 rounds. Problem for George Groves is, it's a 12-round fight. You know, football's a game of 2 halves. First half can go bad, second half you can smash it and nick the game. And in the second half, I felt George was tiring. Not massively, but I could feel the energy was draining from him. I mean, fair play.
Was it
you put a lot of work in.
Was it draining?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's tiring. You can't deny that it's tiring. I mean, it's a physical fight.
But you still felt sturdy?
I thought I'm in the best shape of my life. You know, I'm up for it. You know, you can't be as sharp in the 7th, 8th, 9th round as you are. And the 6th round was a heavy round, and I can't remember exactly what was said to me in the corner, but I remember the corner did say something rather like, "Don't worry, just go out, get behind your jab now, box this next round, you know, win the round," because I know what Carl's mentality is. Even him just not getting hit as much, he would see as a victory, and then something to just sort of plough on with, as he would soon describe, I'm sure. But
the first round knockdown was catching me cold. I obviously didn't get knocked down that much. First time was against Jermaine Taylor, my first world title defence, and then obviously George flattened with a right hand. But like I said, I walked to the ring cold. I was in the changing rooms with these doubts, and I never warmed up properly. No excuses, he caught me with a piece of the shot. But that punch he didn't move in round 1 was the best thing that could have happened to me, because it woke me up. It gave me a kick up the arse. And Rob McCracken was like, "There you go, look, this is fucking now wake up." I'm like, fucking hell. You know what I mean? I need to put my ideas up. And it didn't help really, because for the next 5 or 6 rounds, George was teeing off at me and landing. It was too quick for me. It was landing shots. I just saw him come in, and I was just kind of riding. I mean, it looks bad when you watch it on there. I'm getting hit with shots, but they're not clean flush shots. They're not like I'm walking into them. I've seen them come in a little bit too late. I'm riding them, I'm half blocking them, I'm rolling them, and I'm getting hit with heavy shots. But I know where
in the fight, you know, he's still there and he's still punching back. But so you know, as you say, you're going to be tired. There's no point trying to enter the tank, trying to get a finish. For me, there's no point trying to do it in the 7th or the 8th. As long as I'm boxing, winning the rounds, I'm thinking in my head, I'm a 12-round fighter. I've done 12 rounds before. I beat DeGale in 12 rounds, Glenn Johnson over 12 rounds. You know, I've done my apprenticeship as such. I've been boxing I've been doing training camps for 12 rounds since my
James
fight.
James DeGale was fucking useless, and Glenn Johnson was an old man. So, you did 12 rounds, but you've not had the 12 rounds like hardcore, raw. I did 12 rounds with Kessler, 12 rounds with Arthur Abraham. You know, these 12 rounders, I did 12 rounds with Glenn Johnson. I actually softened him up for you.
It was a year before I boxed him.
Yeah, that's what I'm
You
saying.
struggled.
Yeah.
You weren't there.
Yeah.
You boxed out
And took a fight on it.
Yeah, okay, no.
I was only in second year.
Yeah.
But I'd done quite a lot more
Anyway.
12 rounders than George. George
You
was
were a
12
lot older.
rounders ago.
Yeah.
Exactly, I'd had many more title fights.
Yeah.
And I think that was the difference in that fight. The experience and the wisdom. To be able to draw on a career that's been intensive, really.
Yeah.
You know, so
I'd say I mean, not to take away from you, Carl. You're just in the fight. That's what he is. He's just in the fight. Experience or not. At this point, you've got no other options. You're not really executing anything well. You're just biting down the gums. You'll toughen it out and punch when you can. So, credit you now, which I wouldn't give you the time, but credit you now for that. But we might as well skip on, otherwise we'll be all day. Skip on
Well,
to the
let's
stoppage.
get to the point. Round number 9, and I'm going to ask the audience their opinions afterwards. But let's just refresh our memories exactly how this first fight stopped. And
Smells blood here. I think Froch needs to finish it here. He really does. Tries to get trouble. He's
whoa! That's right.
Stopped it. Wow. That is going to be
Do you see that? Do you see that slight pause of Cole going,
Froch is disgusted.
what just happened there?
Froch is furious. And there's going to be some controversy here. Froch having in trouble, no question about that. But he was so far ahead, George Groves. Was he in so much trouble that it required a stoppage? That's the question that's going to be asked over and over again.
so, we're going to get both of your takes on this. Not too long, right? George, what was your opinion on what happened then?
It's bizarre. It's like, I mean, you know, Howard Foster made a massive error of judgment at that point. Don't know what he thought he saw that felt he had to stop the fight there and then. I mean, like, I slip under one of Cole's right hands, and then the next shot, I catch it on the glove, he bounces me, I bounce off the ropes, I think he lands one, I'm still punching back. It's almost like he goes in to just separate us or something, and then panics and stops the fight. Really disappointing for me, because at this point I feel like it's, you know, I've given everything for this. It's me, my little violin out, because, you know, I've got no team going into this fight. I fell out with Adam Booth. I've trained myself for this. I brought in Paddy. I brought in whole new coaches. I've had to find new premises. I've got Eddie Hearn on my back telling me, you know, making life difficult. I've got all the Sky commentators telling the general public that it's a no-brainer. I've got the whole public on my back, because I'm just, in my brain, just trying to be ballsy, like be brave, be confident, be up for it. Very similar to how I tried to approach the James DeGale fight, where everyone backed me, but this time round, because of Cole's experience and his achievements and that, and, you know, and Cole was riding high, people were on my back. So yeah, it was just really disappointing, really disappointing.
Carl, when you look back at it, do you still have this? Are you still willing to sort of say, yeah, I was wearing him down, he was in trouble, and all this sort of stuff?
I can see where you are with it, with the stoppage. But if you roll it back another 30 seconds before that, I don't know what's happening with the camera now, what he's doing. He's like, but before that, I hit him with an overhand right, and it was badly dazed. You know, it was an overhand right, caught him on the side of the head, and his legs were a little bit shaky. I'm not saying he was gone, but he was on his way.
Prior to that?
Yeah,
okay.
And then the ref brings us together here.
Yeah.
And then that's when I sort of run it in and try and then get tangled up. I go for the finish, and it's a bit of a tangle. I smothered my own work. I was a little bit. It was, I suppose, desperation is probably the right word. I'm man enough to admit, because I caught him, it was hurt. I pushed myself on him, and I was punching. I was too close. I didn't give myself the distance at the time. Really, the ref separated us. And then that was my onslaught. I had time to have a breather, compose, and I was throwing right hand, left hook, right hand. His head was bouncing around like a jack in the box, popped up. His head was, and the referee thought, right, he's just been hurt, and now he's getting caught with right hands and left hooks. Of course, one or two shots landed, but You know, there was 3 or 4 shots went in there, and there was a stage where George Groves.
See the 3 or 4 shots.
If you pause the scene where the referee jumps in,
Let's have a look.
George is kind of in a desperate.
Smells blood.
Watch the body language of George
Under.
when he comes
Cover.
forward. Now what's this
Punching
here?
back.
Right hand landed, right hand left hook, right hand. Look at the body, arms by his side, falling forward. The referee's like thinking,
Bit premature, really.
what's he doing?
Bit prem.
So, regardless of whether you think that was a stoppage, it was too early or whatever, whether it was fair or not, the fact of the matter is, that stoppage created the controversy that created the Wembley rematch.
Yes. Before we go on to that, I just wanted to get your opinions on it. On your phones, if you go back onto Slido, you want to. You don't have to. You can look at me with anger in your eyes, or you can go on. I just wanted to gauge your opinions. You can do it whenever you want, or not do it at all. But I wanted to get your opinions on whether he was right to stop the fight at that point. You get to vote yes or no. No, 100% so far. Say. Do you want to just shout out? Okay.
Early stoppage, show me stop.
No way. Okay, brilliant. That's great. Okay, good. So
There was only 4 people.
No, we've got 5 votes. We've got
Who thought the stoppage was bang on?
You thought it was bang on, did you?
So,
Go on then. So, shh.
Wait, no, there's Howard Foster in the back. What's that, Howard?
Yeah, Howard, go on. But you know what? Let's not forget, and George, you'll be able to explain this far better than I will, but you had that sort of funny sort of low gait and
Yeah, no, I had a languid style.
Languid style,
Yeah,
yeah.
like low left hand, you
Yeah.
know, relaxed posture, mouth open, so I've got a deviated septum, can't breathe through my nose, pale pasty skin that goes pink, and so it didn't always look the freshest, but it's not about, fights don't necessarily get stopped because you're not fresh, it gets stopped because you're getting bombarded with big shots.
Okay.
Typical shots that Froch was actually getting in the rounds prior.
But you're right, you're absolutely right, Carl, and we'll kick on because we need to get on to the second fight.
Listen,
You're absolutely, that controversy was the thing.
I'm honest enough to say the fight could have probably gone on. A different referee would have probably brought us together and said, right, okay, time yourself, folks. You know, the fight could have gone on. But then that begs the question, was George Groves fresh enough or fit enough, or did he have enough in the tank to then go on and make a dent in the fight and stop me or win on points? Or was he destined to be knocked out because I was coming on strong? I'm a 12-round fighter. If anyone's seen me fight Jermaine Taylor, I've stopped him in the dying seconds of the last round. I've had more 12-rounders at world title level than you care to think about, and there's always big finishers. So I think the writing was on the wall, but no, that's because it was controversial, because we never got a conclusive finish, because we felt like we was robbed of that decision. That's why we got the rematch.
We did indeed. But you had to fight hard to get it, didn't you?
Yeah, so...
Because you didn't fancy it, did you? Or were you sort of like thinking, right?
Well, I was thinking to myself, I watched George, he came and gave a good account of himself. He certainly gave the crowd a good fight. The television was absolutely loving it. Sky Sports were buzzing.
Yeah.
But the controversial finish, for me, it felt very much like a loss because of the way I was received afterwards. Obviously, I got the win. The history records say you won, you defended your IBF world title. Stoppage.
Well, we heard the boos, didn't we, start?
Yeah.
And for him to leave as the hero and you to win,
Well, actually,
get booed out of the
it
arena.
was nothing that I did wrong, nothing I could do. The referee stopped the fight, I didn't stop the fight, you know. But can you imagine, I walked to the ring not so sure of myself. I wasn't that confident because the training camp wasn't the best. I got in the ring, I got dropped in the first round. I got beat up for 6 rounds.
Howard Foster resigned, we're out of the IBF, going to something else. They reset me as mandatory. So for me, that's great because now, without having to sell my soul to a promoter, I can get my next fight. Technically, can be for a world title, whether it's against Carl or whether if Carl vacates or goes a different route, I fight the next in line. So that was important for me. But I knew as well, becoming mandatory, it'll be a great selling point. You know, it's more pressure on Carl, more public sort of back in for this rematch, and therefore, it'll be huge. It'll be huge. I didn't really want to do a deal with Eddie Hearn at that point. I felt like the first time I met Eddie Hearn, he was telling everyone that Audley Harrison was going to be David Haye. So it was really hard for me to then gauge him as a serious character. Obviously now he's a force. Now he knows a lot about boxing. He's got a lot of credit. But back then, you know, he'd been given the keys at Sky, and it was the fighters that were doing the work, and he was just there, you know, walking around with scarves at Wembley. You know, hold on, mate, I'm the one who's bleeding. You know, Carl's the one who's bleeding. Anyway, that's a different story. So we do a deal with Eddie. He goes to Wembley. We do a press conference. We had to sell it. I'm there with a Rubik's Cube. Carl's there. Did you have your sequins on that day, or did you leave them at home? I can't remember.
Hey, listen, the sequins were well and truly gone.
Yeah.
And the training camp was 12 weeks. And I spent 12 weeks in Sheffield, where I moved Monday to Friday. I went home at the weekends. And I took George really seriously. He deserved respect. He had a great first fight. He put me over. My left ear is still ringing from that fucking knockdown, let me tell you. And I then had a profound respect for George Groves after that first fight. So I stayed in Sheffield Monday to Friday, and I was up with the kids, the podium kids, the guys that fight for the Olympics and the various multi-nations tournaments around the world, the guys that win medals. And I was running with them in the morning. I was on the strength and conditioning circuit, which I never usually do. I do my own press-ups, sit-ups, squat thrusts, and then, I do press-ups and sit-ups and pull-ups and dips. They're the 4 exercises I do. And sometimes I do deadlifting, which is why I feel back up now, because I still think I'm in my 20s.
I'm worried about your back.
Yeah, my back's a bit sore. Well, it's not a good position sitting like this. It puts a bit of pressure on the lumbar region. But anyway,
carry on.
I took the camp seriously. I trained hard. I did 150 rounds of sparring. I was running. My heart rate was low, 42 beats a minute is low for me. I ain't got that much of a low heart rate, but this has come down. My running, I'm doing 6 minute, 15 second miles. And in my head, I'm fucking man on a mission. And more so than all of that, I'd got my head straight. I was speaking to a guy called Chris Marshall, which George Rose picked on when we did The Gloves Are Off. And we had a little chat around the table. So I had a sports psychologist, and that was very helpful, because in the first fight, I was reacting on emotion. And Chris Marshall explained to me how the brain works and how the amygdala gives off it's like a homing beacon to danger. George Groves was the danger. And when he gives me some stick, do I react logically or emotionally? The best way to react with anything is logically. Don't let emotion play a part. And it's a very strong word to use, hate. But I really fucking hated George in the first fight. And I took that to bed with me every night. It affected my sleep. My training was, okay, I was pushing on. But there's also, when you're training with anger, it's not the best thing. You need to be relaxed and calm. Everything's got to be thought about. So the rematch, I got my head right. And I was feeling good about myself.
And could you sense that at the news conference, that you were facing someone, you thought, hang on a minute, I'm not picking holes in it. And I suppose in the Gloves Are Off, I watched it, I remember watching it and thinking, you were trying as hard as you were landing sort of verbal blows ahead of the first fight. The second fight, he was just picking them off, wasn't he? Did you sense that?
Yeah, by that point, I was sort of trying too hard. Carl had stopped biting. We're in new grounds, you know, it's a post-war attendance record for boxing in the UK. They want it to be huge. And I was trying to bang the drum, you know,
George was DMing me on Twitter. Direct messaging me on Twitter, TikTok, fucking everything for a reason.
7 weeks to go.
Round 6. There was like a countdown every week, 6 weeks to go, 5 weeks to go. I think it was week 5, I blocked him on Twitter. Have I unblocked you?
I don't know.
I've got to check.
I'm not on Twitter anymore. But yeah, like, so, you know, I was at the opening of a fridge door, opening of a packet of crisps, you know, trying to promote this fight.
Excuse me, mate, I'm absolutely down for it. Just have to excuse me.
Yeah, go on. Off we go.
This is Andy, I'll finish this. Well done, Carl.
If anyone wants to go and have a piss with Carl Froch, now is your opportunity.
If he comes in and he's jaws swinging, keep an eye out over him, because he's a bit suspect. I'll finish his story.
Yeah, go on.
He does this every time. He leaves me fucking up here hanging. I've always got to sell the fucking show, you know that. I've been carrying him for years.
So yeah, news conference. You could tell that you were fighting a different beast.
Yeah, by the time my gloves are off, he's not engaging. I remember being really tired, like mentally tired. I'd done a whole day at Sky. It was like the last thing to do that day, and I'd been there like 7 hours, and he'd literally just come in for the gloves are off. And I remember Johnny Nelson was there, and you know, I think Carl was asking me, what does everything for a reason mean? And I forgot. I was like, I knew this before we got here, and I can't fucking think. But yeah, so by then, and I remember him like, all of a sudden him inflating, like his shoulders relaxed. He left that building really like he'd won, and the first time he probably won a verbal battle with me in the build-up for both the fights.
And that was the let's have a pull and a push about, wasn't it?
Yeah, pull and a push, yeah. Like Johnny Nelson says at the end, are we going to get a handshake? It's like, yeah, that's original. We haven't heard that before. My philosophy is I'm not going to concede on anything by saying no, because that's like a sign of weakness. So like, yeah, if you want to shake his hand, I'll shake his hand. So I give him a little, try and give him a little tough handshake, like a little, not trying to rag him over the table as he says, but he interpreted that as, you know, fighting talk, and then he dragged me over the table, which again wasn't a good look for me. He pulled his back out doing it though, so he ain't been the same since. Has he got on in there? Yeah, you alright?
Have you just talked about the pull and the push?
The pull, he missed the pull and the push.
Tried to get that one out of the way, didn't he? Quick. You made a proper cunt of yourself, didn't you? Like trying to give me some stick, talking bollocks, everything for a reason, round 6, blah blah blah. Sports
I told you he'd come out of the toilet all energised. He's pumped.
He says to me, oh, you've got a sports psychologist or something. Well, easy for you to say something. And he was like, ah, shit. And then I went to shake his hand, yeah, and he was like, he was all tense. He knew he'd fucked up on the gloves off. He knew I'd run rings around him, and he was like angry, shaking my hand like, you fucking arsehole. He's squeezing me out, and I'm thinking, what's he doing? And he's pulling me in a bit, like he's trying to look casual. So I just fucking ragged him over the table. You're lucky I didn't give you a slap. Just a little. Have you seen the interview with, is it Sean Connery? Every now and again, you give him a little slap. He's on about his wife, which I'd never advocate. But he needed a little slap, just to calm him down. But he didn't get one, but he had a bad day. And yeah, on from the gloves were off. We then had the big fight at Wembley Stadium.
We did indeed. And just, you know, for people to sort of just be transported back into that moment, it was incredible. Yeah, I know we made jokes about it was in front of 80,000 people, and you loved it.
Big crowd.
Massive crowd. But that as an occasion, it was almost like the Olympic opening ceremony. It was massive, wasn't it? It was. How do you look back now and just think?
Huge. George Groves came in a London bus.
Yeah.
Couldn't be any bigger.
That was pretty cool.
Did you get on that bus from Shepherd's Bush?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
I was waving at everyone.
some journey that was.
But do you look back at that and think, even though it didn't go to plan for you, George, by the end of the evening, we'll see that in a minute.
No shit.
Yeah. But do you still look back and think, yeah, it was great to be part of that moment?
Yeah, it's taken me a long time to sort of appreciate that it was a historic fight in that regard. It didn't work out for me, but I was part of that history, and it's not necessarily up to me to say, you know, the importance of it, but it is nice when people tell me, you know. Everyone was there, you know, whether they were a die-hard fan or just an absolute casual or just they've never seen boxing before in their life. Everyone's been there, and you know, it's part of our history. You know, Carl had, you know, he was having world title fights before I even turned pro, but this was still a significant part of his chapter, a significant chapter of his career, which is, you know, just shows the magnitude of the fight. So, no, it was amazing. Wanted it to be bigger and better than anything that had ever been before. Trying to come up with, you know, a jazzy ring walk, for example. So, London bus, I mean, London bus don't sound so cool, but, you know, open top bus. We had fire breathers, we had pyrotechnics, we had flame breathers and throwers and fire breathers and this and that. Coming out to Kasabian Underdog, which was cool. We wanted to get Kasabian to fucking perform that night, but they were busy. I think one or two of them were watching.
Too much buns, wasn't it?
Maybe. Well, yeah, Carl wasn't willing to spend on the budget, and I didn't want it to come out of my purse either, no, so we were both of it then, and none of that.
I didn't want to waste any money on pyrotechnics. I had one job to do, and that was go and win the fight by any means necessary. And after the first fight and what was at stake in this rematch, I'm fighting now for my legacy, because on the build-up to this rematch, I told myself already, this is my last fight. This is me done. I had my rematch with Kessler, got the win, and then George Groves came along, and I just thought, what's going on? And like I said earlier, boxed George Groves, nearly got beat, nearly lost. The referee jumped in, saved my life. Howard Foster is a good mate of mine. He got the envelope, he knew the rules, he knew what was going on. So he jumped in, he stopped the fight, you know, it all went to plan. Yeah. But it was tougher than what I thought it would be, like, jokes aside, he gave a good account of himself. So he's one hell of a fighter, George Groves. The rematch, I was a man on a mission. And I was drawing on all my world title fights, 14 world title fights back to back. I beat Jean Pascal, Jermaine Taylor, Mikel Kessler, lost to him in a close fight in Denmark. Andre Durrell, Andre Ward, Arthur Abraham, Glenn Clough Johnson. These are Hall of Famers. These are guys that, some of them are already in the Hall of Fame, you know. And then I beat Lucian Butte, unbeaten Canadian. Then I had the one easy fight, Yusuf Mack, who wasn't actually that useless, although his name sounds useless. And then it was George 1 and George 2. And this is the end of my career now. I'm telling myself this is my last fight. I'd had enough after that first one, the dance show, I'm getting old, I'm 36 years old, nearly 37. My back's hurting, my elbows hurting, my hands are fucked, you know, my nose is fucked. My nose never used to look like this. The surgeon did a really good job. You know what it looked like, this stuff. You've had yours done since.
No, I've always had this stupid big puffy nose.
You're going to get yours done, aren't you now?
No,
you've been inspired, haven't you?
If you want to sell one of your fucking cars and do it for me,
So I'm in with George Groves, and my legacy's on the line. My whole career now is on this night. And if I lose to this guy who's 10 years younger than me, he's had a good career, but he's not had the career I've had. So I've got to fucking take this fight seriously, and I did. I did everything right. I trained, done everything, talked to the sports psychologist, and my mind was... I walked to the ring almost hypnotised. You know, there was a few fireworks and a few beams, and there was 80,000 people in the crowd with the phones out. I didn't pay any attention to any of it. I was just honed in on that ring. And I could just see the light shining off the top of George Groves' bald Swede. He's not bald anymore. He didn't have any hair, did he? I thought you polished it. No. I could see the light bounce off the top of his head anyway. And I was thinking to myself, I've got to just knock him out. I've got to. This is mine now. This is going to be my defining moment. So I was prepared to go out on my shield and go out on a stretcher. It sounds harsh, but it happened. And there was no way I was going to walk out that ring either knocked out or knock George out, or try everything I can to try and get the win by any means necessary. If that means hitting him low, elbowing him, headbutting him, which I didn't have to do, but I was prepared to do it. And you know, unfortunately for George, he put himself in a position against the ropes. He told everybody before the fight, like in the first fight, he told everyone he was going to hit with 2 right hands. In the rematch, he told everyone he was going to hit with a left hook. Stupid, really, naive. He knows it was silly now. When I backed him up onto the ropes in round 8, was it round 8 or round 9? Round 8, was it? Was the first one round 9?
Round 9 was first, yeah.
I can't remember the first fight. He dropped his glove as the right hand was on its way. It was like a honed-in missile. I backed him up, I threw a little fake, he reacted. I threw a check hook, which is a throwaway left hook, just to keep him occupied. He blocked that shot, and the right hand was already coiled.
Should we see it?
Oh, we're going to see it.
Do you want to see it, ladies and
what a
gents?
treat.
Let's have a look.
This is out of order.
Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Here we go.
I've never seen this before.
And you can see the confidence flowing from Groves now. The longer this is going on, the success is coming.
2 body shots, left, right. He's felt that.
And he stays with him.
Little feint, here comes the feint.
Digs
Here
and
we go.
digs.
Let's go right hand, balls.
It's destroyed Groves. It's right to free. Top of his sword. What a shot.
Oh.
You will not see a more explosive
I'm not
hit.
again. Oh. Fucking hell.
This is
Oh,
choking.
that's enough, that's enough.
No, and this is the point, ladies and gentlemen, where it took me years to get to this point, I promise you. But congratulations to Cole Froch, eh? Fucking hell, round of applause for Cole. What a shot! Like, what a way to finish your career. It's just incredible. You know, there's not many things I'm jealous of in this world, but that is something to be jealous of. I mean, what a way to do it. And, you know, we're all fighting our own battles, we're all on our own path, our own journey. But Carl, you know, I've heard it, we've done this talk many times now, and to hear, I get the full picture of what he put into that performance. And what a shot! Like, what a way to go out. Congratulations to you, mate.
And can I just add to that and piggyback off the back of that and say to the people and to you, on from that loss, you went on to fight Badou Jack, who's a bad boy. He can fight. And you lost a split decision in a close-fought, hard-fought contest. He given bad advice in the last 2 or 3 rounds, lost a split decision, and he still went home to his wife and kids and still believed in himself and still kept with it, still loved the sport, still got himself to the gym, and he went on to become a WBA world champion in his own right. Against Sugar. And I was there that night commentating for Sky Sports, and I swear I was the first to jump out of my seat. The thing yanked him because it was attached to the machine, and I jumped up, and I was so happy for him because I know the work and the commitment and the heartache that he'd been through to get to that point, and it was getting hard in there for him. Chudanov's a tough sucker, and he was taking shots, and he was firing back. I saw George take a deep breath, and he went again 5 or 6 shots, and he put the finish in and became world champion. And you know, fair play to him. I don't know if I could have took that loss, the first one, which was controversial, and then the flattening in the rematch. It was a flattening, wasn't it? It was a good old flattening. And then he went on to do what he did and become world champion. He's had the round of applause, but that was a brilliant way to become world champion.
Well, should we see, because we'll go on to your questions in a moment's time, but let's see the moment that you did become a world champion.
I thought it was about
I know it is, but let's see this as well.
Big moments here for Groves. Chudanov's going to suck it up. He's going to have to throw back in. Steve Gray taking it closer. And George Groves.
Really good work here from George Groves. Chudanov in desperate trouble there, but hanging in.
So close. A minute 50 left in the round. And Groves has given it.
Bit premature.
Actually, I've not really studied that fight that much, but I reckon that could have gone on. At least another 10 seconds. That was actually about 22, 23 punches that was. It was unanswered from Chudnov. So to put that sort of effort in, when I boxed Jermaine Taylor and I stopped him in the last round, it was 18 unanswered shots. It's fucking hard work to put them shots together. So you have to grit your teeth, bite down on that gum shield, dig your heels in, and work away even when you're exhausted. And you know, boxing's the best sport in the world, and you really have to dig into them reserves sometimes. And there's not many people that walk this earth that can walk in these shoes of a professional fighter. And I'm not giving myself a big head. All the professional fighters, even the ones that don't make it to British level. My brother Lee fights on licence actually, and you know, he's 8 years nearly sober in sobriety. And he had a tough time when he was fighting, drinking, snorting that shit up the nose, what most people do. He's now 8 years sober. He's had 13 fights, unbeaten as an unlicensed fucking fighter, cleaned up on the circuit. And I'm so proud of him because to get in that ring and to exchange blows and exchange whatever is hard work. To do it at the top level and become a world champion like us two in here tonight, we put our lives on the line, and we'll really appreciate, by the way, the turnout tonight. There's been a few loud mouths, but they've quieted down and they've listened, they've showed us respect, and we've had a great night, to be honest, and thank you very much for turning up. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Round of applause for George and Carl. Boys, if you want to just head down to your seats, and we're going to get them back up in a minute, and we'll be answering your questions. We'll have about sort of 10-15 minutes of your questions answered, because you've sent in loads of them, and I have to sort of filter out a few of them. But boys, if you want to just go and sit down for 5 minutes, we're just going to do the second half of we go. So Carl, when it comes to hand speed, how does George compare to Andre Ward?
Andre Ward had a fast jab. He was tricky with his jab. He came from funny angles, but I think that the sheer hands, he's not known for being a fast puncher, Ward. He's more of a messy, bit of a grappler. He was a high school wrestling champion, actually. No, George got faster hands. It's as simple as that, really. Okay. George hit me a lot more. I could see Andre Ward's punches coming. I was able to get out of the way. And, I mean, it was a 12-round ball fest, that fight.
Yeah.
So I'm giving George the accolade of having faster hands than Andre Ward.
But it's not a particularly high bar.
No.
Okay.
But Andre Durrell had hands like lightning.
Yes. Andre Durrell was fast as fuck.
Okay. Right. Next question. At the moment, I wanted to get your take on the situation with, and this has been asked by. There's not many names on here, but I appreciate you all sending them in. The situation with Ben and Eubank juniors. What was your sort of take on that situation and how it's sort of all sort of unravelling at the moment? George?
Yeah, Eubank's come, I mean, apart from getting paid, he's gone from a lose-lose situation, fighting Conor Ben, to a win-win. Like, he's probably more popular now than he has been for a long time. Conor Benn pleads innocence, but from what I understand, it's almost impossible for this stuff to be in the system through cross-contamination or just by mistake. So I don't know, you know, innocent until proven guilty. I like Conor Benn. He had no chance in that fight. You know, people come up to me and think maybe he was going to win. It's like he's a welterweight against a middleweight who's boxed at super middleweight, boxed at a higher level for a longer amount of time, more experience. It was, you know, it was a bit of a gimmick fight. It wasn't really a fight I was keen on, but.
You've got a middleweight coming down to almost like 157, like almost light middleweight, super welterweight, against a potentially juiced.
Yeah, it could have been dangerous. Yeah,
So, you know, if you've got a weight drain fighter against somebody who's potentially taken a performance enhancing substance, which is what it's failed for.
So did you, when Chris Eubank Senior was talking about the fact that it was almost, you know, that it was going to be a murder, like, yeah, murder, and he was using very strong words. For people that don't quite, I listened to it, I was like, okay, I hear what he's saying, but is that genuine?
I just think if you cheat in sprinting, if you, like Dwayne Chambers totally ruined his career. Like, he's on that SAS who does wins at the minute. It's really, like, he knows, he admits, he said, look, I took a performance enhancing drug and I cheated in was he a 100 metre sprint?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's ruined his life. And, you know, in many ways you could say rightly so, but you've got to cut him some slack at some point. But that's defined his career, ended his career, Dwayne Chambers. There's been many drug cheats over the years, but I bring him as an example. Now, Conor Benn, really, is, like George said, is a substance that shouldn't be in his body through cross-contamination. It's something that he's taken. It's often used, that climethine, or climethine, often used as a masking agent as well. So you take that after you've had a course of steroids to get rid of the effects of the steroid you've been taking. So it doesn't look good at all, but until it's conclusively proven that he's taken PED, performance-enhancing drugs, and it definitely banged to rise, he needs to put a statement out there and just tell us what's gone off. And until that happens, I'm not going to throw him under a bus. I'm just going to say, listen, I think he's a clean athlete. He's a young man. He's got no reason to be cheating at that age because he's got natural amounts of testosterone. He's fit and strong.
And
But
when
he's failed a test like that, and you look at his last 3 or 4 fights where he knocked out Chris Algieri, and before that he had a good win. You just think to yourself, was he on PEDs then? Because all of a sudden he went from being a fighter that struggled against domestic level fighters, then wiping out ex-world champion contenders. Like Chris Algieri had a good fight with Amir Khan, and you know, he doesn't get wiped out like that. So it does make you question him. But until we know, I don't know why it's a grey area. I don't know why you've got UCAD, UK Anti-Doping Agency, which the British Boxing Board of Control use. He passed that. But then you've got VADA, which is the Voluntary Anti-Drug Agency, which is voluntary, so by virtue of the fact it's voluntary, you didn't have to do the test, but you enrolled in it to get a WBC ranking, because if you don't enroll, you don't get your ranking. But if you fail a drugs test, to me, you fail a drugs test. I had hundreds of tests, as I'm sure George did, never failed one. He's failed it, so it doesn't look good. So we sit and wait for the actual statement and for the justification of what he's done, but in a minute, it doesn't look good, and it's very disappointing, and it puts a real dark shadow on boxing.
Yeah.
And it's not like when you're sprinting like Dwayne Chambers. You don't win by half a second or 0.2 of a second. You can potentially kill somebody. You know, you're punching them in the head. And if you're juicing, you're punching them faster, harder, and you're punching them more often. So, you know, it's not really the kind of sport you should be cheating in because it's so dangerous. So when Chris Eubank Senior comes out and says, you know, you're looking at, I've already lost one son, which he did, Sebastian, unfortunately. Yeah. I think he had a heart attack, then drowned, didn't he? In Dubai, which is a tragic loss for him. You know, to be talking about potentially losing his son, I totally get it.
Yeah.
But we've got to wait for the results. Unfortunately, it's a grey area. We need to wait to see what comes out, and then we can all pass our judgment. If he has cheated like any other cheat, and it's disgusting. And Canelo Alvarez, as Eddie Hearn said many times before he started promoting him, Canelo Alvarez has failed a drugs test. He's a drugs cheat, and he got banned for 6 months and fined. It was then. The statement was it was contaminated meat.
But that's an old one that everyone uses from...
Yeah.
It's well trodden with cyclists and things like that.
Contaminated meat, 6 month ban. He has a 6 month between each fight anyway, then he fights and he earns 50 million, so it don't affect him. So it's not good, but we'll wait and see, won't we?
Okay.
It all comes out in the wash, as they say.
It does. George, there's a question in on... We spoke briefly about him earlier on, James DeGale. I'll paraphrase it. Do you still what do you? Is he as I can't? Is he as big of a prick? Is he as big of a prick as he comes across on television?
Yeah, probably.
But is he really? He's not that bad, is he? Or does he still get? Does he
I don't
still
know,
grind your
maybe,
gears?
yeah, I never see him. I couldn't do something like this, like go on tour with Miguel. I mean, that'd be great fun, but he wouldn't be interested in that. He can't really string a sentence together. I think he's a bit punished now, poor son. So, but yeah, not doing a lot. Don't hear from him.
Yeah.
Suits me just fine.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, badly Jack knocked his teeth out. And he used to call me ugly boy, and that was the one that got me the best, you know. He's all bust up, missing teeth like a hillbilly. Fucking silly bastard. He stayed punched, he stayed hit as well. Badly Jack stayed hit. Yeah, torrid time for him. Jesus, also, yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask both of you, and you can both answer this, but I know that, Carl, you've sort of publicly discussed it a little bit more, but the whole sort of YouTube trade of fighters and coming out of retirement and things like that, how close, genuinely, would you get to doing something again, back in the ring or back in a cage or whatever? And have you come close?
Listen, if it was someone like, well, Roy Jones Jr., we was going to have an exhibition, that came quite close, and then it fell apart at the final hour for whatever reason. I don't know if it was talking about putting it on in Dubai, and then Roy Jones was talking about fighting somebody else, and it was back and forth. We actually went to contract, but then the contract kind of fell apart with the guarantees. I don't think there's much money in this exhibition stuff. I don't know if everyone saw Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr.
Oh, there's whispers I'm hearing that you're going to fight McGregor in the cage.
Conor McGregor called it on.
I'd pay for that, to be honest.
And I thought rather than going and saying to him, look, you've got to come to my discipline and box me in a boxing ring, I just thought I'd take him on in the cage. Now that might be stupid, but I don't mind a little pull and push or roll around. So if he wants to roll around on the floor,
Would you genuinely do it?
I'd look at it, yeah, because he's not big enough. I'd never come out of retirement and fight a world champion in my weight division. Even somebody like Callum Smith, who I think I'd beat. I think I'm too much for him. He lost to Callum Smith, didn't he? I think I'd do him now. I used to spar him. I think I've just got his number. But anyway, that aside, to fight somebody like Jake Paul or Logan Paul, the performing clowns, you know, they're not fighters. It's like me trying to play football. I won't go to play in the Sunday conference. Because
does it get to a point where the amount, and I'm just asking, just devil's advocate, but the amount of boxing that they're doing and training, do they get to a point where they are competitive in any way? Or
no, not even with a 45-year-old retired.
Right.
No,
They're good white collar fighters, you know.
Right.
The difference in class is massive.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not even a match. Did you see him against Floyd Mayweather? Now Floyd Mayweather's half his size and was like not even trying. And he just made it easy and made a couple of $100 million. So to answer your question, yes, I would come out of retirement for an exhibition with a YouTuber because it's just easy money. Why wouldn't you? It's just like, someone wants to put a massive amount of money in my bank for not even having to train. I don't even think I need to train. I would train for a couple of, probably have 2 days in the gym.
You could start dancing again, Carl.
So something like that would get me out of retirement because it's easy money.
Yeah.
But I'm not that lucky. I don't think are you that lucky? Do you think you get something like that? He's not stupid, Jake Paul. He knows what he's doing.
He'll fight Chris Eubank Jr. now.
Potentially, yeah.
I reckon, because Junior don't really want to have a real fight. He wants to fight Conor Benn as a welterweight, or he'll fight a YouTuber. There's YouTube boxing this weekend on DAZN, Misfit Boxing, which is.
Does it make you fear for the sport a little bit when you see the rise of it and the way that it has just become? That's where almost. Not all of the money, but so much money, it's ridiculous amounts of money is going on basically just social media driven traffic, basically.
Yeah.
Does it make you worry about the sport?
But it's all sports, you'll suffer quality over making a quick buck, you know. The Sauer brothers take care of this KSI deal, and they're boxing through and through. They grew up boxing, they're so proud to know all these world champions. If there's a pound note to be made, they'll be at the front promoting that shit.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's not really entertaining fights. You might as well just have celebrities fight like Ricky Gervais.
Read your face.
I remember Gervais did a Channel 4 charity fight.
Oh yeah, he did, didn't he? Yeah, he did. Right, but there was one question from the floor, and he's gone. Where's he gone? Was there one other question from the floor or not?
Yeah, he asked where the toilet was, I think.
But that was it. That was the question. Okay, just a final word. A final word from both of you boys, because it has been a great night, and table number 5 is still enjoying their night. Just a final word of being here in Newcastle and sort of this tour, and I think this growing sort of bromance that you've sort of developed, which I quite like seeing. I feel like a proud sort of parent of you both. Yeah.
No, you know, me and Carl, we got a lot of similarities. You know, ex fighters who went on our journey, and now we're navigating our lives in the civvy world. You know, finding stuff to do, hanging out together, doing these shows. Who would have thought me and Carl would have a lot of similarities and get on? He's a really good mate of mine. If I thought what? I don't know, he looks kind of fresh, he's kind of fit, isn't he, you know? I've got a bit of a size advantage on him now, I'm a bit of a lump. But I can still punch. It'd be the same, it'd be like the first fight over again, I'll probably catch him early, and then, you know, he'll be hanging on in there.
Yeah, but that's an interesting point, but the fact that you are carrying a bit more weight now, not like a massive amount of weight, but would that count in a fight between you two? Like, it's literally just a standing start now. Your sort of fitness, more wiry, you've got a bit more bulk to you. Would that make a difference?
We're not going to put it to the test, though.
No. I know it's not going to happen. I know it's not going to happen right now. But
We'll
like,
do it in a cage.
In a cage. But would it make a difference?
Mass moves mass. I'll probably punch harder, but I'll gas out real quick. I'm not fit. I don't know what Cole's fitness is like, but he's light on his feet. He's a bit leaner. So.
Okay. And just a final point from you, Carl, just that I was saying before, being on tour, being here in Newcastle and working with George and carrying on this tour, it's sort of a journey of discovery, isn't it, a little bit?
It is, yeah, 8 years on from our bitter rivalry. We had the first fight, controversial first stoppage, admittedly. Great rematch at Wembley, transcended the sport to the next level. It was the catalyst for what Eddie Hearn's doing now. It opened the doors for people like Anthony Joshua, and it meant that fighters now make a lot of money if they get there. They have to get there, but they make a lot of money because there's a lot of interest in the sport. So me and George can be proud that we brought boxing to the forefront and crossed over to a whole new audience. And we talk about the YouTubers doing what they're doing, but it's not boxing. Well, the boxing purists don't take that as real fighting, but even that, you know, that brings the sport, whether it's for the right or wrong reasons, but it puts the sport on television and gets people watching it. So we've got a lot to be proud of for what we did for our sport, and to come back 8 years later, and for people to come along, spend the money and listen to us talk, we appreciate it. It's been a great night, it really has. It's quite a knowledge boxing audience. Thank you very much.
Round of applause for George Groves and Carl Froch, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, boys. Well done. Well done, George.